I was supposed to surprise my husband with $3 million on the same day he served me divorce papers in a hospital bed. The irony wasn't lost on me, even through the morphine haze and the crushing weight of betrayal pressing against my chest like a second cancer. I remember staring at the manila envelope in his trembling hands, then at the burgundy leather folder hidden in my nightstand drawer, just 3 feet away. So close, a universe apart. He didn't know. He couldn't have known, but that didn't make it hurt any less. Let me take you back to when things were still good, when I still believed in us. My name is Caroline, and I met David when I was 26, working as a junior architect at a firm in Boston. He was 30. Charming in that effortless way some men have, not because they're trying, but because they genuinely light up when they talk to you. He made me feel seen, important, like I was the only person in the room, even when we were at crowded parties where I usually faded into the wallpaper. We got married 2 years later in a small ceremony by the lake. My mother cried. His father made a toast about finally finding a woman who could put up with David's terrible jokes. Everyone laughed. I laughed. David squeezed my hand under the table and whispered, "I'm the luckiest man alive." I believed him. For 8 years, I believed him. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. I'd worked my way up to senior architect, and David managed a marketing team at a tech startup. We had a modest house in the suburbs, talked about having kids someday, took camping trips where we'd lie under the stars and make up stories about the constellations. He traced patterns on my palm and tell me about the life we'd built together. A bigger house, maybe a dog, definitely kids. 2, he thought, though he'd accept 3 if I wanted. As long as they have your eyes, he'd say, kissing my forehead. I had no reason to doubt him, no reason to see what was coming. The cracks started small. Looking back now, with the cruel clarity that only hindsight provides, I can see them all. The way he started working late more often, the new cologne, the phone that was suddenly always face down on the counter. But I didn't see them then. Or maybe I didn't want to. I was too busy with my own secret. The lump appeared on a Tuesday. I found it in the shower, my fingers running over my breast in that absent-minded way you do when you're shampooing your hair. A small, hard mass. Probably nothing, I told myself. A cyst. Hormones. I was only 34. Cancer was something that happened to other people. Older people. But I made an appointment anyway, just to be safe. The mammogram led to an ultrasound. The ultrasound led to a biopsy. The biopsy led to a phone call that started with, "Mrs. Chen, I'm afraid I have some difficult news. Stage 2 breast cancer. Aggressive. I'd need surgery, chemotherapy, possibly radiation." I was sitting in my car in the grocery store parking lot when I got the call. I remember watching a young mother load bags into her trunk while her toddler danced around her legs, singing something off-key. The normalcy of it felt obscene. How could the world just keep turning? I drove home in a daze and told David that night over dinner. I had made his favorite, chicken parmesan, because I needed something to do with my hands, needed to feel normal for just a few more hours. "I have cancer," I said, setting down my fork. The words felt foreign in my mouth, unreal. David's face went pale. He reached across the table and grabbed my hand. He said, "We'll fight this. We'll get through it together. I promise." I believed him. God, how I wanted to believe him. The first few weeks, he tried. He came to my appointments, held my hand during the scary conversations with oncologists, helped me research treatment options. We cried together the night before my surgery. He held me so tight I could barely breathe, and he whispered, "You're the strongest person I know. You're going to beat this." But somewhere between the surgery and the start of chemotherapy, something shifted. Chemotherapy is a special kind of hell that no one can truly understand unless they've lived through it. It's not just the nausea or the exhaustion or watching your hair fall out in clumps. It's the way it strips away everything that makes you feel human. Your energy, your appearance, your dignity. I'd spend entire days in bed, too weak to move. The smell of food made me sick. I lost 25 pounds. My skin turned gray. The thick, dark hair that David used to run his fingers through came out in handfuls until I finally just shaved it all off. I looked in the mirror one morning and didn't recognize myself. The woman staring back was hollow-eyed and skeletal. A ghost. David started pulling away. It wasn't dramatic. There was no big fight or declaration. It was gradual, like watching a tide recede. He stopped sleeping in our bedroom, claiming my night sweats kept him awake. He worked later. He stopped asking about my treatment. When I'd try to talk about how scared I was, his eyes would glaze over, his attention clearly somewhere else. "You're going to be fine," he'd say, a pre-recorded response. Then he'd check his phone. I told myself he was just scared, that he didn't know how to handle it, that men process things differently. I made excuses because the alternative, that he was abandoning me when I needed him the most, was too painful to acknowledge. But I couldn't ignore the text message I saw one night when he left his phone on the bathroom counter. "I miss you. When can I see you again? This is torture." The sender was saved as Mike, from work. Mike didn't use heart emojis. Mike didn't say things like, "I can't stop thinking about you." My hands shook as I scrolled up. Months of messages. "I love yous," plans to meet, complaints about me, about my illness, about how it was too much, about how we couldn't do this anymore. "She's not the same person I married," he'd written just 3 days earlier. "I feel trapped." I set the phone down carefully, like it might explode. I walked back to bed. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Part of me died in that moment, not from the cancer, but from the betrayal. Here's what David didn't know, what I hadn't told anyone yet. 6 months before my diagnosis, I'd received a letter from a law firm in New York. My Uncle Robert had passed away. A distant relative I'd met maybe twice at family reunions when I was a kid. He was the odd one, the family whispered. Never married, spent his life working in finance, lived alone in a tiny apartment despite being, as it turned out, extraordinarily wealthy. And he'd left almost his entire estate to me, $3.2 million. The letter came with a note, handwritten in shaky script. "Caroline, you were always kind to me when others weren't. You asked about my life. You listened. This is my thank you. Use it wisely. Build something beautiful. Uncle Robert." I barely remembered the conversations he mentioned. A wedding, a funeral, brief exchanges about his work, his travels. I'd just been polite, but to him, it had mattered. I'd been waiting for the right moment to tell David. It felt like such huge news, the kind of thing that needed the perfect setting. I'd imagined taking him out to a nice dinner, handing him the letter, watching his face light up with surprise and joy. We could talk about our dreams, maybe finally start trying for kids, buy that bigger house, travel. Then I got diagnosed, and telling him about the money felt wrong. I didn't want him to worry about finances on top of everything else. I wanted to focus on getting better first. The money could wait. I had the inheritance transferred into a separate account. I met with the state lawyers. I had them draw up papers creating a trust, a fund that would give David $3 million to secure our future, to handle any medical bills, to help us rebuild after I recovered. I'd been planning to surprise him on our anniversary, which was just 2 weeks away. I'd already bought a bottle of champagne. I'd written him a letter explaining everything. telling him how much I loved him, how grateful I was for his support through the hardest time of my life. The burgundy leather folder containing those documents was in my nightstand, waiting. But I never got to give it to him. It was a Thursday in March when David came to the hospital. I was in for my 6th round of chemo, hooked up to an IV, watching some mindless show on the small TV mounted to the wall. The nurses had been kind, bringing me extra blankets because the cold was unbearable. I heard David's footsteps before I saw him, quick, purposeful, not the walk of someone coming to offer comfort. He stood in the doorway for a moment, and I could see it on his face, the decision already made. My stomach dropped. We need to talk. Those 4 words. The beginning of the end. He sat down in the chair beside my bed, but perched on the edge like he might bolt at any second. He wouldn't look at me. His eyes stayed fixed on his hands, twisting together in his lap. I can't do this anymore, Caroline. My mouth went dry. Can't do what? This. Us. The sickness. The hospital. All of it. It's too much. He finally looked up and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Resentment. You are not the woman I married. I feel like I'm living with a stranger. I've tried, Caroline. God knows I've tried. But I can't watch you waste away. I can't spend my life in hospitals and doctors' offices. I'm only 38. I still have a life to live. The words came at me like physical blows. I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning. I have cancer, I whispered. I'm fighting for my life. I know, and I'm sorry. I really am, but I can't fight it with you. I need to think about my own mental health, my own happiness. This is killing me too. He pulled out the manila envelope from his messenger bag, set it on the tray beside my bed like he was delivering mail. These are divorce papers. I've already signed them. I had them drawn up last week. Last week? While I was throwing up from the chemo? While I was losing my hair? While I was terrified I might die? There's someone else, I said. It wasn't a question. He had the decency to look ashamed. Her name is Jenna. I met her at work. She understands me in a way you don't anymore. I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. How long? Does it matter? How long, David? 4 months. 4 months? Since right after my diagnosis? Since I was at my most vulnerable, my most scared? He stood up. I'll have someone come for my things next week. The house is in both our names, so we'll have to figure that out. My lawyer will be in touch. You're leaving me now? Right now? In a hospital bed? I can't keep pretending, Caroline. It's not fair to either of us. He walked toward the door, then paused, turned back. I hope you get better. I really do. Then he was gone. I sat there, staring at the manila envelope, the IV drip steady in my arm, my body full of poison meant to save my life, and I felt something break inside me that had nothing to do with cancer. I'd lost my husband, my marriage, my future. But more than that, I'd lost my faith in love, in partnership, in the vows we'd made to each other about sickness and health, better or worse. The burgundy leather folder was at home, in the nightstand. $3 million he'd never know about. A gift prepared with love for a man who didn't exist anymore.